for their voices. They even know the age of one of the people. That would make a total of 11 if they do find those 2 additional people.
And Gary, one of those 2 is the one we believe to have that had established cell contact with his family.
Yeah, well, you know, it's nice to know that it perhaps wasn't, because that would mean there are 2 more people. So we don't know that for sure. That's what people are surmising, but we don't know that for certain.
All right, Gary, we're going to let you go. We're going to head over to St. Vincent's Hospital, where the paramedics there are holding a news conference on the status of their operations.
I've also gotten more information. Our hospitals in the system, St. Vincent Catholic Medical Centers, in the outer boroughs, received 65 patients in total, and the 1 fatality that I spoke to you about before. I have Dr. Jesse Blumenthal, the head of trauma, just to bring you up to date on some of the things we've been seeing overnight in the emergency room. And then we have 2 of our paramedics, Tony Suarez and Phil. I'm going to let Phil pronounce his last name. We'll give you those spellings if you need them later. These 2 gentlemen were on scene from 9 a.m. yesterday until last night. They can tell you a little bit about their experiences as paramedics at the scene, and then we'll open for questions. Sure.
Live right now. Tell us about reports about possible survivors possibly being lost.
We have heard some reports that there were survivors taken out of the building within the last hour. We did receive a call from EMS that we should be prepared, but later reports have told us that if there are anybody that needs hospitalization, we may not be receiving them. So, possibly Bellevue would be one possible scenario, yes. Okay, Doctor, just a little bit about what we saw overnight.
Well, unfortunately, we wish we had more patients to treat that came in overnight because, again, there was difficulty in getting to the scene, and I think the paramedics will describe that. But we have been busy taking care of the patients that we did receive. The three of the severe burns were transferred to the Cornell Burn Center. We have automatic transfer agreements between hospitals, and again, taking care of severe burns is a tremendous logistical strain. We have other lesser burns which we're caring for. We're in the process of actually visiting and getting data on all the patients that were admitted. Additional 2 patients went to the operating room last night because of fractures, soft tissue injuries, lacerations, and the like. We're in the process, obviously, of reviewing all the patients, and a couple of patients will probably be ready for discharge. But I think the staff unfortunately was anticipating and hoping that we would receive survivors during the night, and I think everyone was very disappointed that we did not. Again, everyone is in a high state of preparedness. We continue to have calls of volunteers throughout the night, and even this morning, and at least we were able to thank them and record this and tell them that we really had enough staff. But again, even the community responding with food was very gratifying to all the staff that was up most of the night.
I'm going to have our paramedics come in and just tell you a little bit about their experiences, then we'll take questions.
Hi, paramedic Iggy Gurens. The paramedic Iggy Gurens, the initial sight was just horrible. I'm just wishing well for everybody that's down there, all my colleagues, everybody else that's giving help. Like I said, it's just a horrible sight. It's a horrible day, and I wish everybody well, and we're here to do whatever as much as we can.
Hi, paramedic Tony Suarez, St. Vincent's. Initially, I was there for about 15 minutes. There were a couple explosions. It became dangerous. We grabbed one person. We commandeered an ambulance and just hightailed it out of there. My prayers are to the fellow firefighters, EMS, police officers that have died, and hopefully we'll be able to get some more out of there. We weren't able to get to the scene simply because it was very unsafe. So please, if you can, everybody, please pray for those that have fallen today.
Can you be specific about what you saw?
I was only at the scene for a little while, but it was unsafe, and basically I heard one explosion and basically just hightailed it out of there. It was very unsafe for everybody, and that's the only thing that I saw. I mean, I had one patient, we grabbed her, put her in the ambulance, she was full of soot. She was covered from head to toe with ashes, and basically dropped her off to a site and then went back to the command center.
I think if it wasn't for the first patient I took out, Jenny, who we took to Cornell, I would probably not be here right now. She was just covered in second, third degree burns, and we just got her out of there. And I hope she's doing well.
Sir, could you explain a little bit about what the paramedics do in terms of stopping every 45 minutes or so to listen and how they proceed?
I don't understand the question.
One of the doctors here was saying that you stop or so every 45 minutes to check and see if you hear anything new to try to find out if there could be anybody in the rubble.
Oh, well, we're just listening to the radios. I mean, we're just listening. Oh, and at the scene right now?
Listening for sounds inside.
Yeah, they're listening for sounds. We're not there right now, but I understand they're just listening to make sure there's anybody caught in any type of voids, in any pockets, if they're alive, if they hear any sound. That's what they're doing right now. Excuse me.
Any other questions?
Did you get a spelling?
Eguiguirens, E-G-U-I-G.
All right, you have just heard some of the first accounts coming from paramedics describing what they were up against in treating many of those injured in the twin attacks here in New York City yesterday. One of the paramedics describing the scene as just horrible. One of the administrators of St. Vincent's Hospital, which is one of the area hospitals where a large number of the victims were taken, describing the level of support the hospital is getting from volunteers in the area. I think that level of support has been repeated elsewhere in the city. I was on the phone yesterday with a couple hospitals confirming the fact that they couldn't even handle the number of people who would come to the hospital to donate blood. There is still a dire need of blood in New York City to treat these victims. Miles, once again, even the mayor, who will shortly be holding a news conference here, is very troubled in trying to get a better grasp of exactly what we're dealing with here. The only good news to come out of New York City this morning is the news that Gary Tuchman has been reporting all morning long, that it appears as though 9 people have been rescued from the rubble, some 6 firefighters this morning, a police officer this morning, in addition to 2 police officers last night, and there is reason to believe that 2 more victims trapped in the rubble will be successfully rescued this morning. So we're going to keep you updated on that. As you know, Miles, I know you saw the stories that one of these victims actually established cell phone contact with a family member last night. I can't imagine anything more chilling. When you look at this rubble, as we had all morning long, it seems an absolute miracle that anybody could survive the crush of 2 107-story towers unfolding on them.
Truly, the word miraculous is probably a bit overused. Normally it applies in this case. Let's move on just a little bit. The name Osama bin Laden has been used all this morning as we talk about the short list of potential suspects for this dramatic, well-choreographed attack. The short list, really, he and his organization involving thousands at the top of it. And they are harbored, it is widely known, in Afghanistan by the Taliban. We are joined now live via video phone from Kabul, Afghanistan, by CNN's Nick Robertson. Nick?
Well, Miles, certainly a lot of attention focused on Afghanistan at this time because of Osama bin Laden. We have been told by diplomats here that senior Pakistani officials are at this moment meeting with senior Taliban government officials. Now, Pakistan is one of the only 3 countries to have recognized Taliban as the rightful rulers of Afghanistan, and Pakistan is regarded by many countries as perhaps one of those countries that has the greatest influence over the Taliban. We don't know the content of those meetings at this time. However, we can confirm that meetings between senior Pakistani and senior Taliban officials are going on at this time. It has been, however, in Kabul today and elsewhere in Afghanistan, a day of apprehension for many.
Fearing what might come next after the attacks on the United States, international aid groups began pulling out of Kabul by early morning. The German charity group Agro Action, one of the first to leave. United Nations operations here also virtually closing down as key staff leave, a procedure followed in the past for safety when regional tensions are high. Apprehension also in Afghanistan's Taliban leadership. Foreign Minister Wakil Ahmed Mutawakil quick to explain their position after the attacks in America.
The Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan has always expressed its condemnation of terrorism. Afghanistan has also been targeted with terrorism, and we have been victims of terrorism. We condemn it here and internationally. Terrorism is frightening and creates hatred.
With suspicion of responsibility falling on Osama bin Laden, Mutawakil's government, well aware the implications bin Laden's involvement would have for the Taliban, was keen to say bin Laden was not responsible.
So far, no one has officially accused us. If anyone has brought up his name, it is because his reputation of the past.
Overnight, the already tense atmosphere raised by an air raid on Kabul, illuminating the sky with rocket and anti-aircraft fire. An ammunition dump hit and 2 planes at Kabul airport destroyed in an attack by the Taliban foe, the Northern Alliance.
Well, for most people here, it really is life as normal. The departure of the aid workers will fuel fears about the future. But many Afghans here are impoverished after 20 years of war, and they have few other options really than to sit tight and just wait and see what happens, Miles.
CNN's Nick Robertson, exclusively live from Kabul, Afghanistan. Let's talk now about give you a quick recap. There were 4 airliners in all involved in this coordinated attack. 2 of them, of course, we've been telling you about just recently, plowed into the World Trade Center. A third, American Airlines Flight 77, a 757, was to fly from Dulles Airport to Los Angeles. Instead, struck the Pentagon. CNN's Bob Franken is in front of the Pentagon now with the latest from there. Bob.
And we have some further information on the search effort to try and find out just how many casualties there are, and of course also to see if it's entirely at all possible that there might be some survivors in the rubble of the crash, the plane that was hijackers crashed into the Pentagon. You can see that, of course, in back of me. What we have been told by Mike Tamilo, who is a battalion chief with the Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Unit. That's the worldwide unit that has gone into so many disasters around the world and has searched for both the victims and the survivors of tragedies. He says that as early as yesterday during the day that the unit was able to take some of its search dogs and go through very gingerly some of the area. He said that they, quote, identified some bodies, close quote, by which he means that they did find some people who had been killed. He did not have a number. He did not say, however, they had been removed. We have been told that a temporary mortuary has been set up not far from here. We do not have any information from the Pentagon on any casualty numbers or even an estimate of them. There was one local fire chief who said it could be anywhere between 100 and 800 deaths as a result of this. Pentagon officials think that the upper figure is way too high. Now, he also said, he being the Fairfax County search and rescue person, that the search is resuming today. It stops overnight because it is so dark and so smoky inside that there is a concern that people are going to trip over the debris as they conduct their search. But the search is beginning inside now as they try and find out exactly the human tragedy of this catastrophe that has befallen the Pentagon. At the very same time, in other parts of the building, the Pentagon is open for business. It was important to the Defense Secretary, he said, to show that in spite of all this, that the operations here would continue. About half the building is considered safe enough to use, 17 miles of corridor, so about half of those are going to be in the safe area. That includes many of the vital operations that are conducted by the Pentagon. Meanwhile, the grim search goes on for the casualties of this disaster. Miles?
Bob, there are 20,000 workers who report to the Pentagon each day. I assume that not all of them have been asked to report to those areas that are considered safe. Is it just essential personnel?
Well, the word was spread through Washington media in the hours yesterday and overnight that people should call supervisors to find out if, in fact, they are among those who should go in. But, of course, many of them know what part of the Pentagon where they work, and, of course, some of the answers would make good sense. But the Pentagon is open for business. They're making a very important point with that, they believe, and it opened about 45 minutes ago.
CNN's Bob Franken at the Pentagon. Thank you very much. Let's turn now to London, where the markets there are taking a moment now to remember those victims of these attacks. A moment of silence. Let's listen. London markets ceasing business for a period of time to remember those